Hey everyone, and welcome back to Talk Tickers. We typically spend our time here breaking down earnings calls, but today we're doing something a little different. We're going to do a deep dive into some breaking news that's got the market buzzing.
Yeah, it's really caught everyone's attention. There's a potential acquisition in the works that has investors pretty excited.
That's right. We're talking about Regetti, computing a company in the quantum computing space. Seeing its stock price go absolutely nuts on rumors of a potential buyout.
Up a crazy amount. We're talking 1,640% over the past 6 months.
Wow. And in the last 5 trading days alone, it surged 140%.
And get this, in the past month, it's up an incredible 640%.
Yeah, so this is not your typical penny stock surge. Regetti currently has a market cap of $4.3 billion.
Which is crazy because they only reported $2.4 million in income last quarter.
That's right.
So what does this tell us? I think it tells us that investors are super bullish on the future of this company, and maybe even more so on the future of quantum computing itself.
Yeah, it seems like everyone is suddenly realizing the potential of this technology, and they're scrambling to get in on the action.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. For those who might not be familiar with quantum computing, can you give us a quick explanation of what it is and why it's generating so much hype?
So basically, imagine a computer that's not limited to the simple on or off 0 or 1 states of traditional bits.
Okay.
Quantum computers use these things called qubits, which can exist in multiple states at the same time.
I've heard of that. Is that superposition thing?
Yeah, exactly. That's superposition.
Yeah.
And what this does is it allows these quantum computers to perform calculations much faster, exponentially faster than regular computers.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and they can tackle problems that would be impossible for even the most powerful traditional computer.
So is it kind of like comparing a horse and buggy to a supersonic jet?
That's a great analogy. Okay, cool. So Rigetti obviously isn't the only player in this field. We've seen other companies like Google making some big strides in quantum computing. So what's special about Rigetti? What's driving this potential acquisition frenzy?
I think it's a few things. While they may not be the absolute front runner in the race, they have made some notable advancements recently. They launched their new Novera QPU, which is a 9-qubit commercial quantum computer.
9 equipped.
Yeah, and that has attracted a lot of interest from some major organizations like the Superconducting Quantum Materials and Systems Center, the Air Force Research Lab, and Horizon Quantum Computing in Singapore.
Okay, so they've got the attention of some heavy hitters for sure.
Yeah, they do. What's their plan for the future, though? Where do they see themselves fitting into all of this?
That's a good question. So their roadmap is pretty ambitious. They're aiming to deploy an 84-qubit Ankaa-3 system by the end of next year.
Wow.
Yeah, and then a modular 36-qubit system in 2025.
Okay.
And a non-modular system with over 100 qubits by the end of 2025 as well. Yeah, and they're not stopping there. Their long-term goal is to have a 336-qubit system.
That's incredible. That rapid scaling strategy reminds me of like the early days of the internet or personal computing.
Right. Feels like the Wild West of technology all over again.
Totally. It's exciting, but with all of this hype and potential also comes a lot of risk.
For sure.
So investing in Rigetti right now is still very speculative.
Okay.
Analysts are predicting that their revenue is actually going to decline next year before it picks back up in 2025 and beyond.
Interesting.
And we can't ignore their valuation, which is incredibly high. Right now, it's about 9 times their projected 2026 sales.
Yeah, that's a pretty hefty multiple.
Yeah, and there's always the risk that they could run out of cash before they actually become profitable.
Right. It's a high-stakes gamble for sure, but the potential payoff could be huge.
Absolutely. It's high risk, high reward.
Okay, so let's talk about the big question on everyone's mind. Who might be interested in actually buying Rigetti? It seems like every tech giant out there is trying to get into the quantum computing game these days.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the usual suspects come to mind first. The big tech companies that are already heavily invested in quantum computing. Google, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, all of them.
Yeah, makes sense. They're in a race to dominate this emerging field, and buying a company like Rigetti could give them a major advantage.
For sure. So let's break down each of these companies, starting with Google.
Okay, Google has been making a lot of headlines with their quantum advancements lately.
Yeah, their Sycamore processor was a big deal.
Right. So would acquiring Rigetti be a strategic move for them?
It definitely could. While Google has made significant progress in quantum computing, Rigetti brings some unique expertise to the table.
But like what?
Well, they have a full stack approach to quantum computing, which means they're not just building the hardware, but they're also developing the software and tools needed to make it actually usable.
Oh, so they're trying to build a whole ecosystem around their quantum computers.
Yeah, exactly. So Google could be looking to kind of bolster their position by absorbing a competitor with a proven track record.
And they'd be getting a talented team of engineers and scientists in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without having to build all of that expertise in-house.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about IBM? They've been in the quantum computing game for a while now.
Yeah, IBM has a very established platform already and a growing ecosystem of partners and developers.
So how would a Rigetti acquisition fit into their strategy?
Well, they're facing a lot of competition from companies like Google and others. So acquiring Regetti could help them maintain their leadership position.
Right, kind of like a defensive move, but also a way to expand their offerings.
Exactly, like a strategic chess move in the quantum computing game.
Okay, now what about Microsoft? They've been relatively quiet compared to Google and IBM.
Yeah, they have been. But they certainly have the resources to make a big splash in this space. They've made some bold acquisitions in the past.
So they could be a dark horse in this race.
Totally. They're definitely not a company to be overlooked.
And lastly, we have Amazon. They seem to be involved in just about every area of technology these days.
Yeah, well, they've been focusing on cloud services for quantum computing with their Amazon Bracket platform.
Right, so researchers and developers can use that platform to access different types of quantum computers.
Right, including Rigetti's. So right now, they're more of a platform provider than a hardware developer, but acquiring Rigetti could give them a more vertically integrated offering.
So they could be looking to kind of become a one-stop shop for all things quantum, from the hardware and software to the cloud access.
Well, yeah, and that would give them a big edge in the cloud computing space.
Okay, so we've got 4 potential acquirers here,
Yeah.
each with their own motivations and strategic goals.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this all plays out.
Absolutely. It's like a high-stakes poker game, and we're all watching the cards fall.
I like that analogy.
So before we move on to our This Is Not Financial Advice segment, where we'll come up with some fun and maybe slightly outrageous trade ideas based on all of this, let's just take a step back and recap what we've learned.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So we've got a company, Regetti Computing, that's riding this huge wave of investor enthusiasm about quantum computing.
Right, their stock price is through the roof, and there are rumors of an acquisition flying around.
We talked about the basics of quantum computing, what makes Rigetti unique, and their very ambitious plans for the future.
And we even speculated about who might be the one to buy them.
Yeah, exactly. So now the big question is, what's next? Will Rigetti actually get acquired? And if so, who's going to be the buyer? And what does all this mean for the future of quantum computing?
Those are the million-dollar questions.
We may not have the answers, but we can definitely have some fun exploring the possibilities.
For sure.
And that's exactly what we're going to do in our This Is Not Financial Advice segment. So buckle up, listeners, because things are about to get interesting.
Can't wait. Okay, so let's jump into our This Is Not Financial Advice segment, where we throw all caution to the wind and come up with some crazy trade ideas based on this whole Rigetti acquisition buzz. But remember, this is all purely hypothetical and just for fun.
Exactly. Don't go making any investment decisions based on what we're talking about here. We're just having some fun and exploring some possibilities.
Right. So my first thought is, what if we play the classic buy the rumor, sell the news game with Rigetti?
Ah, the old Wall Street adage. I like it.
Yeah, so options traders love to try to capitalize on big events like an acquisition. And we know that a Rigetti acquisition would be huge news. So what if you bought call options on Rigetti with a strike price just above its current market value?
So basically, you're betting that once the acquisition is confirmed, the stock price is going to jump even higher.
Exactly. And then you sell those call options the minute the deal is announced, hoping to capture a big chunk of that price surge.
That's the sell the news part.
Right. But of course, timing is everything with a trade like this.
Yeah, if you're too slow, you miss out. And if you're too early, you might leave money on the table.
Exactly. It's a high risk, high reward kind of play.
Okay, so that's one spicy scenario. What else you got?
Okay, let's get a little more creative. How about a pairs trade? We could pit Regetti against one of its potential buyers.
Ooh, a pairs trade. Now we're talking. Tell me more.
Okay, so let's say for the sake of argument that you think IBM is the most likely acquirer.
Okay.
So you could buy call options on Rigetti, betting on its stock price to go up. And at the same time, you could buy put options on IBM, anticipating that their stock might dip a little when they shell out the cash for the acquisition.
Interesting. So you're playing both sides, hoping to profit from the different outcomes for the two companies.
Right. But of course, this strategy is not without its risks.
Oh, I'm sure.
What if another company comes in and outbids IBM? Or what if the deal falls apart completely? This trade could really backfire.
Yeah, there are a lot of ifs and buts with this one.
There are. But hey, if you're a risk taker and you have a strong feeling about how this is all going to play out, then a pairs trade could be a pretty tempting option.
Okay, I like it. I like it. So what's our final crazy idea?
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. What if this whole Regetti situation sparks a chain reaction in the quantum computing world?
Ooh, you're thinking like a wave of acquisitions.
Yeah, like a quantum gold rush. Once one big company makes a move, the others usually follow. So all these smaller quantum computing companies might suddenly become very attractive targets.
Right. So instead of putting all our eggs in the Regetti basket, we could diversify our risk and look for other potential winners in this quantum feeding frenzy.
Exactly. So maybe it's time to start researching some other promising quantum companies out there. Ones with solid technology and maybe a more reasonable valuation. Who knows? You might find the next hidden gem that gets scooped up in this quantum gold rush.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's recap our completely irresponsible, not at all financial advice brainstorming session. We've got the buy the rumors, sell the news, play with Regetti options, the pairs trade, where we bet on both Regetti and a potential acquirer, and then the idea of broadening our search to find other acquisition targets in the quantum computing space.
And remember, folks, this is all just hypothetical fun. We're just exploring some possibilities and letting our imaginations run wild. Do your own research, understand the risks involved, and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now let's shift gears a little bit. We've been talking a lot about the potential applications of quantum computing, but can you paint a picture for us of what that might actually look like in practice?
Sure. One area where quantum computing has huge potential is drug discovery.
Okay.
Imagine being able to simulate really complex molecules and chemical reactions at a level that's simply not possible with traditional computers.
Wow.
That could revolutionize how we develop new drugs and treatments.
So instead of spending years and billions of dollars in the lab, pharmaceutical companies could use quantum computers to speed up the whole process.
Yeah, exactly. And it could lead to the faster development of life-saving drugs and therapies. It would be a game changer for the healthcare industry.
That's incredible. It sounds like science fiction, but it's actually becoming a reality.
It is. What about finance?
Oh yeah, Wall Street's going to love this.
Totally. Imagine creating more sophisticated financial models, improving risk management, and even coming up with entirely new financial instruments, all thanks to quantum computers.
So it's like algorithmic trading on steroids?
Pretty much. And we can't forget about materials science either. Quantum computers could allow us to design and engineer materials with properties that were previously thought to be impossible.
What do you mean?
Like lighter, stronger, and more durable materials for everything from airplanes to smartphones.
So we could see things that we never even thought possible before.
Exactly. It's mind-blowing to think about all the possibilities.
It really is. It feels like we're at the beginning of a golden age of innovation, driven by this incredible technology.
It's an exciting time to be witnessing all of this unfold. Who knows what amazing discoveries are just around the corner.
Okay, so let's bring it back to Regetti for a second. They're definitely making waves in the quantum computing world, but what makes them stand out from their competitors? And what are some of the key things that will determine whether they succeed or fail in the long run?
I think one thing that sets Regetti apart is their full stack approach. They're not just focused on the hardware, but they're also developing the software and the tools that are needed to make this technology accessible to a wider range of users.
So they're building a whole ecosystem around their quantum computers.
Exactly. They understand that for quantum computing to really take off, it needs to be more than just a scientific curiosity.
Needs to be a practical tool.
Yeah, that developers and businesses can actually use. So that's one thing that sets them apart. Aside from that, investors should also be paying attention to their ability to execute on their roadmap.
Which is pretty ambitious.
It is. They've set some aggressive targets for qubit count and performance improvements. So if they can deliver on those promises, it will go a long way in justifying their current valuation and attracting even more interest from potential buyers.
It's like they're trying to build a rocket ship to Mars.
Yeah.
They have to hit all of their milestones along the way.
Exactly. Every step is critical. Another important factor is their focus on practical applications for quantum computing.
Right.
There's a lot of hype around this technology, but the real value is going to come from finding real-world problems that quantum computers can solve better than traditional computers.
Right. It's not enough to just have a super fast computer. You have to know what to do with it.
Exactly. And that's where Rigetti's partnerships and collaborations with industry leaders come into play. They're actively looking for ways to apply their technology to real-world challenges, which is a very smart strategy for any company in this space.
So they're not just building quantum computers for the sake of building them. They're trying to make a real impact.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something to keep an eye on as Rigetti's story continues to develop. It really is. I mean, the possibilities seem endless. But for our purposes today, let's think about what this means for investors. We have Rigetti with a stock price that's soaring and a future that's still uncertain. So what are your main takeaways for listeners who are trying to make sense of all this?
Yeah, that's the big question. I think the first takeaway is that quantum computing is not just science fiction anymore. It's real, it's developing quickly, and it has the potential to change so many industries.
Yeah, for sure. This isn't just hype. We're seeing major tech companies investing billions of dollars in quantum research and development.
Right, and Rigetti, even though they're still relatively small and their financial performance hasn't been stellar yet, they're right in the middle of it all.
They are, and they've definitely caught the eye of some big players. This potential acquisition is a clear sign that they're a company to keep an eye on.
Definitely. So we've talked about their ambitious roadmap and the importance of developing real-world applications for this technology. What else should investors be considering when evaluating Rigetti, especially given how high their valuation is right now?
Well, one thing that's really important is competition. Rigetti isn't alone in the quantum computing game. They're going up against giants like Google and IBM who have way more resources and experience.
Right, so investors need to think about whether Rigetti can actually compete at that level.
Yeah, can they really hold their own, or are they more likely to end up being acquired by one of these bigger companies?
So even if they don't achieve the kind of revenue growth that some investors are hoping for, they could still be a valuable asset to a bigger company that wants to expand its quantum capabilities.
Exactly, and that's why this potential acquisition is so interesting. The question is, how much are companies like Google or Microsoft willing to pay to get a piece of the quantum pie?
It's like a high-stakes poker game.
It is, and Rigetti might have a really strong hand, even if they're not the one who wins the whole pot.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so for investors, the key takeaway is to be both excited and cautious about this space. Recognize the amazing potential of quantum computing, but don't let the hype cloud your judgment about the risks and complexities of this market.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating area to watch, and it could be very profitable, but it's definitely not for the risk averse.
Well said. So as always, we encourage everyone to do their own research, talk to financial advisors, and make smart decisions based on their own individual risk tolerance and investment goals.
That's right. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into Rigetti computing and the world of quantum computing. Thanks for joining us here on Talk Tickers.
Thanks, everyone.
Be sure to tune in next week when we'll be back to our regular programming, breaking down earnings calls and analyzing the latest financial news.
See you then.